Hello and welcome. My name is Stuart Rowell, also known as Silvertooth. You are tuned to the Liverpool Connection Music and Football Podcast. It's good, so keep it locked.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. This is my music and football episode where I bring on a DJ, producer, musician to talk about the two loves, which is music and football. My next guest is a label boss of house music. He's been in the game for a very, very long time. He used to have residency at the end. He's just a fantastic producer. I don't know how he does it, DJing, producing, A&Ring, everything. But we're going to get into it with him. And he's also a Spurs fan. So, the tears might come rolling down anytime soon. But I'm very chuffed to welcome Will Saul to the podcast. Hiya, mate.
Thanks for having me. Hey, yeah, nice to be here.
So, do we want to talk football and get the crying out the way first, or music?
Oh, you can go which way you want, to be honest with you, Daz. I don't mind. Let's start football.
All right, might as well. So, why Spurs?
It's a good question. I'm Somerset born and bred, so and I'm 46 years old now. So, as you start to get to that age of picking a team, I will caveat this with my dad's a Blackburn Rovers fan. His family are from Blackburn. And just not a particularly avid football fan, or wasn't when I was growing up. So he never really influenced the decision at all. And living just outside Glastonbury, we were nowhere near any League One teams at the time before the Prem. And it was just at the time when Spurs was sort of quite an exciting team, lots of exciting players, Lineker, Gaza into that whole sort of early era. And they just seemed like a fun team at the time. And I was really into football and had been to London a few times. So there was a sort of a very slight connection there, had family in London. I just selected them probably aged about 7, I would imagine. And that's how it all began. That's how the rocky road began.
Who's your childhood football hero?
Oh, I would say actually Ginola, actually, to be honest, in terms of the player I've enjoyed watching the most growing up in my teens, I would say Ginola, just because, he got just what a player to watch. And I've seen him play a few different, my uncle lives just outside Leeds. I've seen Spurs play at Leeds possibly more times than I've seen them play at White Hart Lane and the Spurs Stadium over the years, because I used to go up there a lot. So I've seen a lot of Premier League football and League One football all over the country, actually. Manchester United, Leeds, Newcastle, just through family. So, but yeah, I've seen Ginola play a lot all over the country and really enjoyed watching him.
Yeah, he was a fantastic footballer. I mean, that's the thing with Spurs. I mean, you've always had like gifted footballers, the Glenn Hoddles, the Gareth Bale, obviously Harry Kane.
Modric.
Yeah, Modric, who's still kicking the ball around at 40 years old for Madrid. It's insane. But like I said, off the recording, I had a soft spot, and I'm sure some Liverpool supporters will be having.
There is a nice axis there, I think, between Liverpool and Spurs. I don't quite know why. There doesn't seem to be much animosity between the two clubs.
There's not really, and like for me, I'm a diehard Liverpool supporter. My dad used to work as a construction engineer in Iraq and Iran, and he was on the plane going to Saudi, and the Spurs squad was on, and I'm talking Glenn Hoddle, Gary Mabbutt, and for some reason, I mean, he knew I was a Liverpool supporter, but he brought back all the autographs on a
nice
shirt. And I honestly, at that time, I was
do it. If you weren't a Liverpool fan, you'd definitely be a Spurs fan off the back of that.
Yeah, but I was still like, "What the hell is this, Dad? Like, I'm a Liverpool supporter. Are you taking this?" And he was like, "Well, I've heard they're good." I'm like, "Yeah, they might be good, but I don't support them." Yeah. So I didn't really appreciate it at the time, but again,
you still got it.
I have somewhere. Yeah,
yeah.
I need to dig it out because it's.
I'll send it down here, mate.
It's probably like the sleeves are probably falling off and everything, but Yeah, it was in, and especially like I was 11 years old when I watched that FA Cup final and
Yeah,
the replay. I'd never seen, I mean, I love Ardiles. Like,
yeah,
again, he had tricks that nobody else had in the Premier League, you know,
yeah,
and Ricky Villa's like little slalom run and to score against Man City was absolutely
totally, yeah.
fantastic. And I always say I'm not just a Liverpool supporter, I'm a football supporter. I
Yeah,
love
I am too, to be honest.
football. If it's good, I'll watch it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've got I'm all right to say I've got a soft spot for them.
Yeah.
Um, you
I
know,
think a few other teams have, to be honest with you. There's a few teams that definitely don't, but
yeah, yeah,
there's a
yeah.
few teams that definitely do, I think.
I mean, we've had some great clashes.
You have, yeah.
Spurs, some classic matches. I remember it was the 2-2 at Anfield. I think
Yes.
you lot got the penalty right at the end, which
Yeah.
was a dubious penalty, by the way.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
it was actually.
it was a bit daft seeing that because it looked like Van Dijk had never touched the fella and he
No.
went down. I think that's one of the biggest problems I have, Will, is people just faking injuries to get somebody sent off or to get a penalty. It's not like,
Happens a lot.
yeah, I think too much. And the refs are conned. And then VAR really, like, uh, I just don't understand VAR in England.
No, and well, the whole clear and obvious, and they won't stop it unless the ref has seen it, or I lose track of the changes as well. There's so many changes made in VR every season that you kind of lose track of what they can and can't do. Um, but there's a lot of stuff that happens that you see happening, as you're watching the game. That you're like, why haven't they pulled that up, or why haven't they stopped that, or why haven't they done this and that? I was watching the game last night, which we lost to Man City, and um, who was it? One of our players was shirt pulled off his back as he was getting out of the midfield, and the ref waved play on, but it was a clear yellow card. And the play went on. It was just like the ref had forgotten about it, and then the player sort of walked over to him. 2 minutes later, and was like, "Where was the card as a result of the foul that was definitely a yellow card?" And the ref just sort of waved him off as if to say it's done and dusted. And you think, why hasn't VAR pulled him up and gone, "Yeah, that was a definite yellow card. You should have given him a yellow card." So yeah, you do lose track a little bit of VAR. Some of it's really good, but yeah, a lot of it, I would pull it away straight away. I just have goal line technology and be done with it.
Well, we seem to like the Premier League is supposed to be the best league in the world with some of the worst officiating.
But I
Every
think it's probably worse across Europe, to be honest. It's
you
bad
think?
here. I think it's bad everywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Germans seem to get it down pretty well, but
Possibly.
it's make or break. I mean, a few seasons ago when Liverpool were in a title challenge, and I remember who was it? Rodri handballed it playing
Yeah.
against Everton. It was a clear handball that was waved
Yeah.
on, and then Doku last year pretty much karate kicked McAllister in the penalty area, and it was a coming together.
Yeah.
It's just if that isn't clear and obvious, I mean, it's make or break, isn't it? I mean, it's
Yeah, and that's why I think it should be. I think they should get, and they're close now to getting offside all but automated. I think they've said that they will get that very, very close in the next, I don't know how long, but probably this season. I'd like to get that as sort of just to save time and make it like an automated scenario as much as possible. Make the rules exactly which part of the body it is and make that very clear, and just it's then an automated AI driven scenario, goal line technology, and then done. The rest of it can just do one, as far as I'm concerned. I think those two things are nice and clear, saves time, makes the right decision. I think the rest can just be left to the ref. And there will be mistakes. There always is. It's human error, but there's human error in VAR as well. So I don't, doesn't seem to be. They're making just as many mistakes in the VAR calls as they are on the pitch. So just keep it to the ref.
I agree. I just at Stockley Park, nowhere near what's going on, and you're putting all your faith in three fellas that you don't know if they're having a little snacky break or they miss something. It's just it's
You
annoying.
also don't know what the hierarchy is in terms of, you get the feeling through the when they're evaluating it that there's the main man, and if he's on the pitch refereeing it, they're always sort of like, I'm not sure we should be pulling this up because he's more senior than I am, or we are in the food chain of refereeing. Therefore, do you know what I mean? It seems a little bit corrupt. Not corrupt, corrupt's way too strong a word, but there's definitely a hierarchy going on that is making some of the decisions, I would say, slightly dubious in itself.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, you even listen to Dermot Gallagher,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's
yeah,
still, like I can't believe some of the words that come out of his mouth, but he's just protecting like the boys' club.
yeah,
That's what I call it. And some of these referees are making the match about themselves, like Oliver, the other
yeah,
week. That was all about him,
yeah,
and it's wrong. It shouldn't be like that. It's about the players on the pitch.
100%.
And after the game, all everyone is talking about is the refereeing.
It is, but then again, my middle son, who is just about to be 10, plays football for a local team, and he's a good little player, good little team, plays every week, trains every week, and the refs that referee his matches are usually in their teens, and there's very clear sort of you're all brought in as parents at the beginning of the season, and it's essentially FA rules all the way down to there, and you really feel for some of the kids that are refing it because they're not necessarily given the support that they need to sort of learn their trade, or at least it doesn't feel like that. And the rules all the way down to that age are questionable sometimes in relation to what they. I mean, there's no cards. There's a no card system all the way through to. I think next year he starts. There's offsides and cards, and it starts to get a bit more sort of disciplined in that sense. Um, but some of the kids are just absolute rotters in relation to sort of the fouling and the back chat and just everything that's going on. You can see that they've seen it on television, and the refs are not in a position to really do anything about it at this age. But really, this is the age where they need to actually be able to say, "You can't do that. You need to leave the pitch," because otherwise they just think they can get away with it. It's terrible to watch sometimes. Some of the players just are absolute animals, and you're like, "How is this even happening?" But you just feel for the ref because he can't do anything and he's getting abuse from the parents. It's terrible. So my point is that you would like to see refs at a young age nurtured a little bit more, so that supported a bit more and trained a bit more, so that there's a better quality coming through. But you just don't see it.
Well, I can't imagine though being a kid and going, I want to be a referee when I grow up.
Well, you can't because you see the abuse that they take at every level, and that's what I mean. Is like that needs to change at a grassroots level in terms of the referee needs to be given protection and support. Otherwise, and he's just not given the tools, even when the kids at a young age, to be able to sort of have authority. So, and you compare it. I mean, God, we could go on forever if you can start comparing it to rugby. I enjoy watching rugby as well, but not to the same level of support or interest as football. But it's such a different beast, in they light years ahead in the way that it's refereed. And look, you can go into the whole culture of the different sports and the societal factors as well, but it's it's frightening watching rugby. The difference in watching rugby and football in relation to the referees and the level of respect that the ref is given in the context of rugby versus football. Um, yeah, fascinating.
Well, and just in rugby, it doesn't take them 4 minutes to come up with a decision.
No, it doesn't. They seem to just be sharper and more on it, and there's some real complexity in the rugby laws as well, and they have
Mhm.
to spin it back and look at it from different angles very quickly, talking to different people, all completely in the open, so the whole stadium can hear what's going on, and they very rarely get it wrong, and everyone knows what's going on, and it's just like, why is there this level of professionalism not present in football, and the money in football is that much more? Why can we not get that across into football? It doesn't really make sense.
Well, plus, I think the soul gets ripped out of you when, I mean, sometimes I don't even celebrate a goal anymore because I don't know if it's a goal or not.
Don't know if it's a goal. Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
that takes like,
The
the
instant done.
spontaneity like out of it. You just say, yay, okay. 5 minutes later, it's a goal.
Oh, yeah,
Great.
yeah,
It's
totally.
tough. I want to get back to talking about Spurs. Obviously, the 2020 Champions League final.
Yeah,
You know, Pochettino. uh, I think Spurs were kind of in the same boat as Liverpool. Like you need to win this big trophy to kick on. And obviously, we did, and then we won the league the year after. Now for
Yeah.
Spurs, that was the nail in the coffin for Pochettino.
It was. We came very close, and I still don't really know how we didn't win something with that team that we had throughout the end of that Pochettino sort of reign. It was fabulous when you look back at the quality of players throughout that team from top to bottom.
Yeah, you play some really good football again, but it was one of those where once I knew Liverpool got to the final, because the
Yeah.
year before we lost to Madrid in Kiev, I just knew we were going to beat you.
Yeah.
I just did. There was this order of Klopp and this team, and obviously getting a penalty after like 1 minute, which is a dubious penalty, I have to say.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of ruined the game, to be honest.
It did. I think it did. I think that's fair.
Even though I'm, on the winning side, again, I'm a football supporter, and I just think that the ref should have. I mean, if it was against us, I'd feel aggrieved. I really
Yeah.
would.
I think that's a fair assumption, a fair sort of assessment of the scenario. And I think it did. I think because we as a team hadn't been in that place before, I think that just sucked the wind out of our sails and killed the sort of game from. They weren't used to coming back in that sort of scenario under that sort of pressure, I don't think, and I think that probably just killed it.
What's your thoughts on Daniel Levy? Obviously something went on with him and Pochettino. I don't know whether Pochettino was like, I need some more players.
I think that's probably the reality. It's really difficult. I'd like to think I'm quite an objective Spurs fan, probably because I only go a couple of times a season, and I'm not sitting in there. I'm not in the sort of the trenches, as it were, in relation to getting to see the team all the time. But it's hard to not appreciate what he does in terms of creating a safe and very financially lucrative business operation. It's hard not to look at that and think and be not impressed, but it's hard not to feel that he's doing a good job. And if you actually look at the money that he has put forward over the last 5 years, it's significant. But I think there's been occasions where, in terms of pure player investment, he could have just broken the bank a little bit more at certain times, and it would have made all the difference. And I think whether or not that was a question of the player wasn't prepared to come to, it was chicken and egg, whether or not the player wasn't prepared to come to Spurs, or Spurs weren't prepared to stump up the extra wages in order to get it across the line. You'd think it's probably because we've been quite up there for the last 10 years, apart from the last season or so, constantly in the top four, where you'd think if they'd hit the wage requirements, they probably could have got some of the key players with the experience level that would have made the difference, because they've got a ton of great young players at the moment. They really have. There's a lot of great youth in there, but they really need some proven winners in there as well to sort of guide the team and get that mix of player across the team. And I just don't think he's looking for a different type of profile player that he's always going to make a great return on, and that the wage requirements aren't going to be as high. So I think I think that is probably going to be incredibly frustrating for a manager that's got the team almost there and then can't buy those 2 or 3 players that's going to really tip it over the edge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does completely. And I think, players will probably look at Spurs too and go, you've had, what, 3 or 4 managers in the past
5 years, yeah.
Yeah, 5 years. So, players also look at that like,
For sure.
Yeah, is it a gamble to go to Spurs when, maybe I could go to Chelsea or Arsenal? And, out of all the London clubs, again, I said a little soft spot for Spurs. I can't stand Chelsea, and Arsenal can go do one for all I care. It's just
really good friends. I'm in a football group chat. There's a Spurs and an Arsenal fan both in there, and it is it's quite entertaining.
Well, I mean,
it's entertaining for me as a Spurs fan watching Arsenal fall short again, to be honest with you, because it quietens them down a little bit.
Well, all you need to do is watch AFTV. Oh my God! Well, again, their whole thing for them is to overreact, because overreactions get likes. They get
totally
watch hours and all that, and I just think it's ridiculous. You should just support your team and don't start screaming at the at the camera. I find it very cringy, but I love the clips on YouTube of him after the game. I just laugh, and Arteta just says the weirdest things. I think he's losing the plot slowly.
It is. Yeah, I think blinkered is possibly the best description of. I think all supporters are blinkered in
Yeah.
terms of grass is always greener or browner depending on your scenario with injuries within your club at any one time. But yeah, Arsenal are definitely my friends that are Arsenal fans are very blinkered until you remind them of sort of circumstances around things, and then they're like, oh yeah, okay. But yeah, it is. Yeah, it's Arsenal again. It's just like if they had invested over the last 2 or 3 years in a quality striker, they would have probably won. I think probably definitely would have won, to be honest with you, because that was the piece the key piece of the puzzle that they've been missing. And now the few players that have been, standing in and chipping in with 8 to 10 goals a season are injured, and I think they're going to crumble for the rest of the season. I think they might even struggle to get in the top four.
I hope so.
You and me both, Dad.
Yeah, and then I'll definitely tune into AFTV. Yeah, it'll be lovely. But what are your thoughts on Big Ange? Because it's so he did well for Celtic. I mean, a lot of people do well. Gerrard did well for Rangers. Went to Villa, was terrible. Went to Saudi, not very good either. But Big Ange, he says the right things, but
he's a very erudite man. He speaks very well, and I like him. I like his sort of principle in terms of I like him as a person. I think he seems like a really good bloke, mate. But I think it's just, and I've actually seen over the last 10 games whether he's been forced to sort of slightly adapt, or I mean the Liverpool game is actually a prime example when we beat you in the first leg of the cup, and he's been forced to sort of not go full Harry Kiri press for the entire game. He's been forced to drop back a bit, and as a result of the fact that our first three choice centre backs are injured, and he's got an 18-year-old right back playing in centre back, there's limited options at this point. To the fact that he's having to sort of sit back a little bit and not press 100% all the time. There's a low block that's popping up now and there, but you just wish that he could, when he's got a full squad, they're top four team without a question of a doubt when everyone's fit. But you could say that about a lot of Premier League teams. So I think I'm not sure that. I think it's going to be next season is going to be really interesting because this last 4 months where the injuries have been horrific. Like I've never seen anything like it in the time I've been supporting the club. But what it's meant is that there's a lot of squad players, a lot of young players, the Archie Grays, the Bergvalls, that over the last couple of months have really blossomed into really good players at a very young age and have been given first team minutes that they would not have been given had it not been for this injury situation. So I think as a result, next season is going to be really strong for us just because there's going to be a serious squad depth there as a result of the fact that you would hope that all of the main player injuries are going to be back sort of over the next sort of couple of months. Then we'll get off season to recover. So I think next season will be a good one for us, but I'm just not sure that Ange. I hope that Ange has learned over this season and as a result will adapt, despite on the surface appearing to be incredibly belligerently stubborn. You would hope that subconsciously or behind the scenes, he's actually going to just slowly start to adapt a little bit or not, or he's going to get his players back. He's going to thrash them again for the first 15 games of the season. There's going to be loads of injuries again, in which case I think he'll get sacked. But I'm interested to see.
Well, that was my next question. Do you think he'll be around for next season?
I do. And I actually think that the optimist, the eternal glass half full of me, still thinks we've got a pretty good shot at Europe, just because Van der Ven and Romero will be back in the next couple of weeks. And Van der Ven is I think he's one of the best defenders in the league when he's fit and firing. And I think with him also being able to, our defense has just been absolutely shattered for most of the season, and actually having most of the first choice defense back for the final run of European games, and most of the first choice team back for the final run of games gives us a really good shot, as good a shot as anyone in Europe for that Europa League Cup. So that's going to be interesting. And if they do win that, then he'll be held as as a hero. But obviously, there's no guarantee he's going to win that. But I think we'll finish strongly despite losing last night.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you don't want to be in the Conference League. I think that's just again, that's UEFA trying to squeeze every drop of whatever, and get as much money as possible. Yeah,
it's not getting it at all.
I just, going away to Timbuktu on a Thursday night is probably not what you really want. And sometimes I just think, if you don't win in Europe, I think it might be good for Spurs to be out of Europe, concentrate
100%.
on the league and the domestics, and get the players back being fit. I mean, for Liverpool this season, yes, we've had injuries, but we've also been lucky that they haven't been long-term injuries.
Agreed. I think that's one of the key things for Liverpool, actually, is that overall you've managed to keep on balance a fairly healthy squad throughout the season at the right times, and I think you guys have been fantastically consistent.
Well, and it's also the players that have come in have stepped up.
Yes.
I mean,
the midfield that everyone was berating as being lacking have actually stood the test of the season and been really strong.
Mm-hmm. And Conor Bradley coming in for Trent when Trent was out for months.
Yeah,
it's just everyone's done the job, and I think the same.
Bradley's a great player.
Who?
Conor Bradley.
Oh my God! I mean, I celebrated his tackle on Mbappe like it was a goal. That's what you want.
You do.
Because I think coming from the old school as well, I grew up with tackles that today would probably get you put in jail.
Yeah.
But it was hard tackles. Now, you barely touch the player and the player goes down. But
Romero's my favourite player within the Spurs team. And,
he's a shithouser and I like it.
Absolutely ruthless. But the thing I love about Romero is that you watch him, he will put his foot in there every single time, but also he doesn't really engage in the sort of afters. He just looks like good as gold. He just doesn't look like he's getting involved on any level, but you can see that he's doing terrible things throughout the game. I mean, I'll never forget he did the hair pull on in the Chelsea game against what was it, Cucurella. I still don't quite understand how he wasn't sent off for that, or how he wasn't even there wasn't even a free kick given, where he literally pulled the guy down to the floor by his hair. So yeah, no, I love Romero, and I definitely do. I like a bit of good old fashioned defending.
He was just checking to see if it was real.
Absolutely, is it a wig or not? Yeah,
I like Porro. I do.
He's good.
Quality, but
he looks like he's come through great as well as a result of this injury. Is Jed Spence? He looks like a really, really good left back, and now I think he's probably pushed ahead of Udogie in the pecking order, actually. And that's again purely as a result of the injury to Udogie for many months. So I think that there's a good squad now there. There's a good depth.
Do you think you can keep that squad though? Because you've got young players like Johnson as well, who's a fantastic player. Do you think a bigger? I'm not going to say bigger team. That's disrespectful. Do you think another team is going to come in for the likes of him, for the likes of Kulusevski?
Yeah. It's a good question. I've not actually really thought about it. I mean, I think those two are still on fairly. They've still got decent lengths on their contracts. They were only really signed last season. So I think we'll probably be all right with those two. And those two, Kulusevski's been our best player all season, I think, in terms of attacking.
He's brilliant.
He's awesome. It would be nice to see. Son's just had a very average season as well. Again, I think he's possibly past his best now, Son. He's just not hit that form of a couple of years ago where he was probably, if not the best, one of the best attacking players in the league when he was scoring 25 goals. Yeah, it's a good question. Possibly. We might lose a few. It's one thing that doesn't, I mean, that tends to happen a lot to us in terms of the best players. I think if I'm being honest, I don't think any of them have hit quite the heights that is going to make them appealing to the level of the sort of the top clubs in the world where you'll get the Modric's and the Bales and the Kanes sort of cherry picked off the top, where you can't really say no to it. I don't think any of them, if I'm honest, are quite in that league. There's a few really good players there, but I don't think Kulusevski's possibly one. I think Johnson's probably still a bit too young and slightly unproven um, to to get snatched. But Kulusevski, you could argue could be.
Mhm. The one good thing I think about James Maddison, he chose Hughes lot over Everton, which is just absolutely brilliant.
He's a great player, but again, I mean, he's been so hit and miss over since he started. It looked like he was just going to be first 10 games of the season. Everyone was like, it's the best signing of the season of the off season, and then he got injured for 2 or 3 months, and then he wasn't quite the same when he came back. He didn't really start the year well. Then he got injured again. Now he's looking pretty good actually, but yeah, he's a great player, but he's just not. You need a solid defense sitting behind him to give him that bit of space between attack and midfield. And our defense has just been absolutely shot to pieces over most of the season. He's just not had the structure to build from, I don't think.
I love his banter with Roy Keane. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that was awesome. Yeah, he likes a bit of banter, Madison, definitely.
yeah. You need those types of players in your team.
Absolutely.
Like a bit of laugh, a bit of banter. So, Will, I want to, talk about music. Obviously, you've been in this scene for a very long time. Where do your roots originate now? I always like to know like what was playing in your house as a young kid. Did that have any influence on the type of music you started to enjoy? Like what was your mum and dad like listening to?
Yeah, I think it probably did. I mean, my mum and dad, my mum definitely has always been into music and definitely pushed me towards playing instruments at a young age. Wouldn't necessarily say at at like 7, I was playing the piano regularly and having lessons. Didn't necessarily enjoy the lessons, if I'm honest, and sort of pushed quite hard not to do it. But my mum kept pushing me and making me try different instruments, and I've tried everything from the timpani to double bass, and the sax I played for quite a long time, and I actually quite enjoyed that. I was in the swing band at school, but so yeah, I was definitely given a good grounding as a result. My mum pushing me into trying music and again, my mum was very open. They would listen to a lot of different sort of good music, I would say, but right across the pop spectrum, really. Not really, neither of them I would say were um, avid collectors or particularly, into sort of niche, sort of obscure niches or anything like that. That they were music lovers for sure, but not. You hear stories of some people that their parents are sort of really into a specific type of thing, and that's influenced them heavily. I wouldn't say that was the case. I would just say that my mum and dad were definitely music lovers, and I think the biggest thing is they pushed me into learning the theory of music.
Hmm. And when obviously, Acid House exploded. Um, did you DJ first, or did you start producing?
No, I was well, clubbing definitely came first in terms of going to clubs and getting into sort of electronic music through being a clubber, definitely in my mid to late teens, and um, then DJing, and actually then I went to university at Royal Holloway, which was in Egham in Surrey, and used to live in South London in Stockwell and Brixton, and travel out to university. And I got a work experience at Sony Music in my second year, which was really sort of licking and sticking envelopes and just generally being there and sort of making tea. Um, but it definitely gave me a sort of a foot in the door. And I used to then travel into Soho when Sony Music was in Soho, and I think just got part-time jobs in record shops. And that was really sort of and started promoting little shows in and around London and essentially giving myself a platform through promoting my own shows and then setting up a record label with people I met at Sony Music, which was simple, my first record label. So yeah, I was a DJ and I guess sort of record label person first, really, and then I started making music in that time as well. Bought a sampler, and sort of taught myself how to do that, and started working with other people. Tam Cooper was was a long term sort of friend of mine and part of an act called Precision Cuts that used to release on Simple Records that I um, went into the studio with loads and learnt a lot from in the early days as well.
Yeah, I mean, both labels were absolutely brilliant. I mean, Simple, you know, and can you, if I say the name wrong, Mbera, am I?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. I mean, today I can still play that, and it still goes down so well.
Yeah, I'd argue that's probably the piece that the record that I'm probably most proud of over throughout my entire career as a producer. I'm still pretty happy with that one. And that's probably, ironically, that's the record or track that took the longest. That took weeks of just of actually recording an Imbira and just all analog, lots and lots of work and changing the chords and just sampling an old Mellotron, and it took a lot of love and labor that track. So yeah, I'm still really, I'm still really happy with that one. Most pretty much everything else doesn't really sort of stand the test of time, but that one I'm still really happy with.
Are you a perfectionist in the studio?
Yeah, definitely,
Hmm.
definitely. You know, some tracks do come quicker than others, but and I haven't done a great deal of music making for a long while now, but um, yeah, sadly an anal Virgo perfectionist.
Well, I've noticed that, with both labels, you can never really pigeonhole. And as you do with like a lot of labels, you're like, okay, that's house, that's tech house, that's prog, that's breaks. But for both simple and house, I could never, and I think that's a really good thing in this industry, because I think once you're pigeonholed, it just puts you in a
Yeah,
hole.
it
Yeah.
is 100%, and it's something that I actively push against. Sometimes subconscious, I think probably largely subconsciously. I've just got quite a varied taste, but also then at a certain point, I do make conscious choices. At a certain point, I need to do something that just sort of makes people's heads turn and surprises people, because I think that's really important for the longevity of anything, really, anything
Well,
creative, anyway.
obviously, like you said, you work for Sony, but you also did for K7, the
Yep,
J Kicks,
still do
which
that.
is that you still doing it?
Yeah, I still do the DJ kicks. I was head of
Oh
A&R there
wow.
for 8 years, but I stepped back from being the head of A&R and responsible for all music to just curating the DJ kicks, which I still do today.
Yeah, it's DJ Kicks is just again, there's certain mix albums like Back to Mime, DJ
Yeah,
Kicks, just you really get to listen to, what the artist is trying to say, music wise, and it's just gone from strength to strength. Obviously, one of my favorites is Kruder and Dorfmeister, DJ Kicks. It's just
yeah. I mean, that was one of K7 and G Stone and all of that sort of Truby Trio, Compost Records, all of that sort of new jazz and broken beat was definitely a time when I was really sort of heavily into collecting music and used to travel out to Vienna and go record shopping over there, and a lot of so for me it was a real honor to be actually end up sort of doing a DJ kicks and then curating the DJ kicks was for me a dream come true, to be honest with you. And yeah, very sadly I must say Horst, the MD of K7, had passed away last week. um, and he was a huge sort of mentor for me over the years, and came up with the whole concept of the DJ kicks. In terms of that blurring of the lines between an artist album and a DJ mix was always his vision, and testament to him. So yeah, he created something really special there.
well, what do you look for then in an artist, to sign for your label?
Um, I think I always try and when I'm signing a piece of music, there has to be something there in terms of the lead track or the singles on an album that is something that is memorable, something that you're going to be able to remember, and something that you keep coming back to. It's got that stickiness, and I think that can be quite a simple thing, or it can be a little bit more elaborate and run through the whole release. Um, but I think it needs to have that character and that hook that I think is what makes music in general stand the test of time. And I think there's a lot of music that is very throwaway, that is great in its time and place in a club or in a certain space or place, but um, is it gonna, is it gonna keep you coming back and listening to it over and over again, or probably not, possibly not. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that's what I look for. I think probably that's what, at all levels of music, from pop music all the way across music, those are the things that make music. That's the thing, the hook that makes a piece of music memorable and stick in your mind, and sort of make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Those are the things that make a good piece of music, really. So that's what I look for, definitely.
Now, do you know in the first, because obviously, we're music lovers and we buy
Sure.
music. Do you know in the first like minute if it's, you know, for you?
Yeah, I think I do. But I think, to be fair, you train yourself how to do that over the years. You don't necessarily know it, and you don't necessarily trust it. But now I definitely do trust it and know it. Um, but there's been records over the years where I think I thought, where I've perhaps signed records where I've been like, oh, is that? Because I've got I like quite commercial music sometimes as well. That has the appeal on a greater level that isn't necessarily niche or underground. And I think for me that's been really, really valuable. I like quite obscure music as well, but I think some that in the early days was simple, that there was things that the Infusion remix that they did of one of my tracks called Cliff, where I was like, they delivered, and I was like, well, I'm not sure. I really like it, but this feels really sort of, this is quite trancey. Like, I was quite torn. I wasn't sure whether I should release it or not. And I put it out, and it did really, really, really well. And I was like, okay, I should probably lean into that feeling a little bit, because I still really liked it, but it was then commercially very successful. So, and I mean, relatively, we're not talking like a top 40 or anything, but it sold quite a lot of vinyl, and it got licensed to quite a lot of compilations, which was a thing 25 years ago. And I sort of learnt that side of my taste, and probably just lent into that a little bit, and found that when I scratched that itch, things tended to do better than, well, you just, it becomes more defined in terms of what you're liking and why you're liking it and what's going to do well and not. And I think that you get the track record of what does well, and you sort of listen and learn and adapt as a result.
I think one of the biggest compliments I can give you about your label is quality over quantity. Because as you know, we live in a world where you can make a track in your bedroom and it can be on Beatport
Absolutely.
within 24 hours.
That's
Um,
literally, yeah.
but then you listen to it and you're just like, wow, no, not in a good
No,
way. Just because,
no.
bedroom producers, a lot of them aren't engineers. So
No,
the levels are not right. So yeah, that's the biggest thing I can say for you is just
thank you.
quality, and you're up to 200 plus, right?
Yeah, we're past 200 now. Although, funnily enough, I'm coming out of retirement to release the final, the fourth part of the 200 series. We did releases from EPs from Damn Swindle, Quantic, and Synthy for the 200th release, and A, B, B, C, and I'm D with a track which is featuring Fink on vocals, who's one of my oldest friends in the music industry, who started working at Sony Music at the same time as me. Has obviously gone on to be very successful, but and also was a real, has released loads over the years on House as Sideshow, which is always his alter ego. Yeah, so we're doing a record together for that, which will come out in a couple of months.
Nice. Yeah, I'll look forward to that. If you're an upcoming producer, um what thoughts do you have for them? To because obviously we're in a social media driven world now. You've got to have so many followers. Like when people want to book a DJ, they go straight to your social media account and see how many followers. And again, I think it's wrong, because as we all know, you can look on YouTube and they're just pressing buttons. They're not DJing. I know what a DJ looks like.
Yeah,
You can feel what they're doing, and they're just,
totally.
thought about, taking pictures while they're playing. What's your thoughts on like a upcoming DJ or a producer to kind of, step away from that?
Yeah, look, it's really difficult because it's a different landscape now. And it's really hard. I manage a lot of artists now. It's a big part of what I do, and it's my wife is a social media manager and expert, and I think it's still the most important thing is honing your craft, really, because even when it comes to sort of promoting what you do in your art, you need to be able to tell a story. And I think the difficulty of the social media landscape is that certain people are more comfortable talking about themselves than others. And I think the younger generation coming up and coming through are so used to it that it's less of a, I think our generation and even the generation before us sort of look at it and feel really uncomfortable with it in general and don't really know how to lean into it. And I think actually the kids today growing up are so used to it that it's not such a weird thing to be doing. But also, I think anyone that tells something authentically and naturally, people are going to be interested in. Anything that's fake and unreal, I think people do tend to see through it quite quickly. So I think always just be true to yourself and be true to your craft and really try and hone your craft. And I think the biggest thing I'll always tell my kids in any walk of life is just try and be the best at what you do. And that will just get you as far as it's going to get you. That's the reality, and however far that is you can be proud of that, right? So I think that just keep your head down and do your thing. Really, I think that's always been the thing I've followed. So I've tried not to really be that person that is terrible at networking and doing any of that in general. I just sort of do my thing and try and be a good person and do the best I can. And I think that ultimately always gets you somewhere. And I think that's what you've got to try and do in social media as well. I think if you can be authentic and tell your own story, then hopefully it's interesting enough. If it's not, then it's not. It is what it is. And I think the worst bit is the whole side of social media that everyone sees and just goes, oh, that's just awful. And it is. There's a whole raft of people that are making money, through just having false likes and the whole thing. But it's unfortunately that is what it is, and you know.
Well, I think for the upcoming DJ, I think the biggest thing is like get your own night, and
Oh,
build.
definitely. Yeah. I mean, that was always the first thing that we were told, and I think still stays true. You've got to have your own thing, create your own scene, 100%. Yeah.
I think especially the amount of clubs that are closing back home in England, it's sad, and only the bigger clubs seem to be staying open. But yeah, I mean, I always say, like, if there's a pub that needs a Friday night DJ, or you find a place that you can rent out real cheap, start there and build from there. That's where this scene starts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spent years, at least a couple of years, doing I think it was the 5 till 7 slot in Barumba on Shaftesbury Avenue, which was literally after work drinks time. And it was the sort of the warm up to the warm up before Giles Peterson's night. So there was another night that came in from like 7 till 10, and then Giles Peterson's night started at 10. Um, but you learn to craft your trade that way. That's it. You learn how to sort of just catch a little feeling and build a little bit of a vibe, and that is what you've just got to sort of craft away. And I think that old saying about, I don't know how many hours it is, but you have to put a certain number of hours into anything before you become really good at it. And I think that is,
Well,
that's
I
the
think that the opening set is probably one of the biggest ones for me. Is a proper warm up DJ. It's kind
yeah.
of lost that now because everyone wants to play bangers, and
I would always rather play that opening set and set the tone.
you can experiment more,
Yeah.
and
That shift of energy is that, for me, that's the most exciting moment in a club as well, is when you sort of, the room fills up and you see people starting to come up on whatever drugs they've taken, or to hit that level where the whole energy in the room starts to change. That give me that over the just coming in and playing for a couple of hours every night of the week.
and it's always nice, when you warm up for a headliner, and the headliner will, take their time to go, thanks very much, you've warmed up
Absolutely.
really well. Like, I know Hanan,
Yeah.
Antonio says that, Digweed does, and like Danny Howells was considered, it, always a warm up DJ, but again,
Lovely man, Danny, as well.
yeah, yeah, he's he's just worked so hard to get where he is, and he's warmed up for Sasha Digweed for years and years, and now he's got his come up, and it's brilliant to see. But I mean, I just think kids need to kind of rein in on, like, redlining the mixer and putting it on full blast, and just enjoy the slow build up. That's
Yeah.
I love that, and I think
There isn't any more slow build up, is there, Daz? It's all just instant gratification nowadays. That is literally the world we live in, unfortunately.
I mean, for me, as I get older, I think my BPMs go lower and lower. Like I love the chuggers now, the 110s, the
Yeah.
115s. It's just where I'm at, and because there's just so much good music at that BPM. I mean, I love the Andrew Weatherall, Sean Johnston style. It's just incredible, and there's people like Silvertooth who are just rocking it. I love the dub style.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you your goals for 2025 for the label.
Ooh, question. Get through another year? No, I mean, to be honest with you, yeah, we don't. I don't really always set goals. To be honest, with you. I mean, we are scheduled now up until September, October time, so we're always scheduled a little bit in advance. Got some lovely records coming out across the year. I think we put so much into hitting the 200th and everything that sort of went into that didn't really think much further than that, to be honest with you. It's next year is our 20th anniversary, so we probably need to do something special for that. I might do some remixes by new favorite producers of some of the classics. But yeah, just continuing to put. I just get so much pleasure from releasing music, so that will just be we'll just continue business as usual.
Do you feel like a proud uncle? Sometimes, I mean, because Bicep, Dusky,
I
Synth,
do, I
and
do.
George Fitzgerald are all household names now. But
Yeah,
we're on your label.
yeah, yeah. No, I do. I feel very proud of that, and look back on that time with very very fond memories. Just because we had, I was living in London at that point and was playing every weekend with them, and we were doing a lot of label showcase events for sort of a good 5 year stretch. We were seeing each other all the time, and they became great friends, and still are. So, yeah, very proud of what they've achieved, and I just feel very very thankful that we very few labels I think get that moment of being in the sun and having that real sort of, I guess, that moment, yeah, that moment in the sun, but also sort of capturing a real sound and a moment and a time. um it was really exciting. It was really good fun. It still is. It's different, but yeah, to have all of those artists that everyone wanted to hear and see, and um, that was a really nice moment for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the label just seems like a family,
Yeah,
and
it is, and we always try. And it's even more so now because my wife runs it, and does all the artwork and design for it, and all the promotions and social media for it. So she's very much doing a lot more than I am now. I do a lot of other stuff as well, but I still A&R it, of course, and do all the signings. But yeah, it's very much a family affair now. She's sort of guides it a lot more than I do, which is fabulous.
I wanted to, last but not least, I want to talk about your DJ Mag, The Sound Of. I actually just listened to it yesterday, and
Oh, nice.
it's just absolutely amazing. Like,
Oh, wicked. Thank you.
and it's good to hear, you DJing, because
Yeah, I've been really enjoying. I did that mix, and I did one for Radio One. We did a residency in November where we did that. They had us do a mix every week for a month, and I did the last one, and it was, again, I just did a complete sort of label mix as well. So the DJ Mag and those ones were the two chances for me to just dip back into the catalog and relive a lot of stuff, and I really enjoyed doing it. It was great fun.
yeah, well, I mean, just listening to it, like I said, and then going, oh man, I have that, I have that, I have that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But it's done so well, you can get some mixes that just sound a bit cheesy, you're like, oh, that sounds dated, but everything's just as smooth as butter as per usual. Are you gonna try and get out and DJ a bit more?
Um, Possibly. I mean, To be honest with you, I kind of feel like I've done it, and I had a wonderful long period of touring extensively, and I've got four small children, so I don't really want to do the traveling that is associated with sort of you need to tour to keep in the mind's eye. You need agent pressuring. You need to release record. I don't want to get back into that cycle anymore. Um, I've sort of stepped away from that, and I'm now sort of managing a lot of artists, which I love doing. Still looking after the label. I kind of feel like I'm in a bit of a different place in terms of I still love if someone wants to book me, I'll go and play, but I'm not going to sort of jump back into the whole world that is actually required to generate bookings. That leaves me feeling quite terrified, to be honest with you. So maybe I'll probably go out and play at Vent in Tokyo. They want to book me, and there's a couple other shows that I know that where people do want to have me, where I need to sort of concentrate on actually putting together a little run of shows, which will be fabulous. But I think I'll probably play Vent in Tokyo later in the year, and maybe somewhere in Osaka in Japan, and also do a couple of others in Asia. But yeah, I think probably won't see me, and I'll play in London and a couple of other bits of bobs, but nothing like back in the day.
Yeah, I'm hearing more and more about like day parties, and I'm all for day
It's like a great
parties.
idea, yeah.
Yeah,
Day party.
in bed by 12.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you. That sounds lovely. Yeah, book me
yeah.
for one of those. I'll definitely come and play for you. Yeah, no, yeah. Look, the actual process and art of DJing, I love it, and I still do it a lot at home. I've still got my turntables, and I've got one of those lovely Pioneer rotary slash digital mixers, the ones that they released recently, and I've got back into mixing a lot more recently. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the mix.
Yeah, I really did. Like, for me, I just DJ at home now. For me, four kids, I have a Friday night
Basically, what I do.
dance party, you
Yeah,
know, and then
nice.
they'll pop their head in and be like, "That's all
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
that's all right." I'm like, hey, they're
nice,
my little four fans, so I'm good with it.
amazing,
But
lovely.
then, but then on the other side, you've got my missus who goes, "Can you turn it down?"
I'm usually saying that to my missus, to be honest. She's teaching herself how to DJ on vinyl, and because we don't have CDJs at home, we've just got turntables, and yeah, she's banging her head on that brick wall at the moment, which is a pleasure, a pleasure or not, depending on the moment that you hear her. Sometimes you're like, oh, I might go in and correct that, but most of the time, she's got brilliant taste in music, and I'm loving seeing her learn how to do it.
Oh, that's got to be great. I mean, I hope, my girls take an interest in music because
Yeah,
I just think music can heal people. It's an emotional thing. Like for me, for music, it's got to make me move. Not like physically, but
totally.
inside, emotionally. Yeah, it's got to have heart and soul. And if it doesn't, then I'm not about it. That's why I'm not into like bangers because they just don't do anything for me, you know.
No, no.
But Will, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've absolutely loved chatting to you, mate.
Again, music and football, and obviously family, are my biggest loves. I'll say family first because if I don't,
You're in trouble, Dad.
yeah, big trouble. But music and football just go hand in hand as well as like clobber and trainers. As you can see, I'm
As I can see, you've got an enviable collection of Adidas back there.
oh yeah. That's only a third of it. I've got all the original boxes and about 90% have tags on. I'm just a collector, you know. It just stems from when I was growing up. We couldn't, my dad and mum wouldn't let me buy a pair of Adidas. They were like, you got to work for it. And then my first pair was on the YTS scheme with my first
Yeah,
check. I bought a
yeah,
pair of Adidas kick and I've never looked back. So
yeah.
my missus thinks I'm absolutely crackers. But I tell her, when I'm gone, these will be worth money and you can
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
whatever
It
you
will be.
want
Yeah,
with it. So
yeah.
yeah, it's been an
Let's take
absolute
those tags
pleasure.
off.
I want to tell everyone, please, you can go to willsoul.bandcamp.com or you can go to housemusic.co.uk for more information on the label and music. And thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, notifications on. As I always say, there's new music out there. Please go search it out. There's new artists that need to be heard. And whatever avenue you find it on, please go looking for it. And if there's a DJ you've never heard of that's come to town, go check them out. Same with a band. You know, it's always good to expand your mind. But till next time, please everyone, take care of each other and stay safe.